Hello, everybody. It's Sandra Pelli, the Sandini Inner Peace Mentor and Visionary of the Guide Academy. There's all kinds of really interesting things happening on my side of the fence. And I would love to have you join me because part of that is who I'm going to introduce right away. But first, let me tell you that this is being sponsored by A Spiritual How To, available on all Amazons. So I'm going to bring Dustin on right away, and then I'll just tell you a little bit about him as well. So here's Dustin Reichmann, beautiful, beautiful gentleman. I met through paid membership. I got to experience his lesson there, and then he reached out to me because of something that was going on for him, and I took part of that. And in taking part of that, my whole world has opened up. I've really shifted in the energy of who I am as an entrepreneur. And that is why I needed to bring him on and share him with you guys, because this gentleman has some really interesting ways to step into being seen and showing yourself. So I'm going to just let you roll with it, Dustin. Maybe you can tell them what I'm talking about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrew, for having me. It's great to be on this side of a conversation and get to be interviewed by you instead of feeling like I'm trying to teach you. But yeah, very excited to be here and share what I can with your audience. Would you want me to just give a kind of a quick background and might give people
Sure.
context for what I do today?
Sure.
Yeah.
Please do.
So interesting background, I think, by most people's standards, in that I did engineering consulting for 18 years. So that's kind of where my brain goes, right? Kind of systematic left brain guy in general. But starting way back in 2009, while doing that, I started my first online business. And for the people seeing this, you can see the logo behind me. It's called Engaged Marriage. So that grew out of some marriage ministry my wife and I were doing. I basically taught myself how to make a website, and we started blogging and speaking and wrote a book. And so that was like a big chapter of our life. That business still exists. And for those listening who are into like online business topics, that's basically a digital course and membership site business. So I've done that. So that started in 2009. That really took off about 2015 when I really got into digital marketing. And that allowed me in large part to leave my engineering career. So for the past 4.5 years now, I've been fully self-employed, doing a variety of things, but all related to marketing for the most part. When I left engineering, I was doing marketing for local businesses, like my dentist, like my realtor. And this kind of goes to what we're going to talk about. It was this act of showing up and just being open with people about what I did that led to like tons and tons of opportunities, like being in your dentist chair and, hey, how's it going, Dustin? Like the default answer is it's going fine. But, in my case, I said, well, actually, kind of an exciting time. I'm leaving my engineering career. I'm, been doing this digital marketing, and it led to a conversation, which led to being one of my biggest clients over the years, and when I was doing that kind of work. So also the next piece of my story is doing digital online marketing for another local business that was like a meat shop, like a butcher shop, right? Third generation. There was a guy who had taken ownership of it. He's a grandson of the founder. We really hit it off on a personal basis. I had a conversation with him one day when I was in there getting some goods with my wife, and he shared he had this brand that was basically just kind of stuck as a local brand, and he wanted to do something with it online because again, in the course of conversation, I said what I did. So we ended up partnering up. Another thing that I know Sandra's heard me say a lot of times is leading with a win. And that's kind of how I do everything in life, is if when I can, I'm not completely unselfish, but I try to really lead in service. And so I said, hey, I know you don't know if this is going to take off. I've never done e-commerce before, but I'm willing to kind of take that risk with you. And so I built a Shopify store for him for free. And then I said, if it works out, we'll figure something out. Right. And so it worked out. It went pretty well. If you fast forward to today, that's one of the two major things I do, is I'm a partner now in this business called FireCreek Snacks. And it's like a 7-figure e-commerce business. So, and that started in 2019. So I've been doing that a lot for like 3.5 years. So kind of in the course of making that transition, I wanted to get away from a lot of the local marketing because it was a lot of fee for service type of work, kind of felt a lot like engineering again, where I had all these clients who paid me hourly to do implementation. So I've transitioned in the past 18 months really to really exclusively doing coaching. So rather than what I would call consulting back then, I do now what's coaching. So it's strategic, it's helping people open up their minds, it's helping people see opportunities, and it's not me writing your emails for you or doing Facebook ads, which is what I was doing in that transition period. So today, engaged marriage exists. We don't put a lot of energy into that. Honestly, it's kind of a passive, online course business and membership site. And then I split most of my bandwidth between FireCreek Snacks and what we call simple success coaching, which is where Sandra and I kind of deeply interacted. I guess it's been about a month now since that workshop wrapped up. But yeah, earlier this year, we had a really great 6-week experience that her and I can tell you about. Is that a good intro? I know it's kind of long.
That was a beautiful, in a nutshell. Yeah, exactly. And
how you go from engineering to selling meat sticks and helping people with their marriages and then doing business coaching. But that's how it happens.
In a nutshell, I love that too. And for those of you who are Canadians, I don't think we can get FireCreek Snacks in Canada, but they're definitely available in the States. So we're looking forward to that coming to Canada, though. And I'm looking forward to a trip to the States so that I can, because I understand that things have opened up again.
Absolutely.
So when now let's deep dive a little bit into why you impress me so much. First of all, when I first got to experience you in this paid membership, what you were introducing at that time was the concept of the 90-day platform. And I can see how that actually evolved because of the clientele you had at the time and how you came into this, essentially what we're calling partnership marketing. And wow, like I say, when I stepped into this, I really had no idea what to expect. And in reality, I probably didn't even tell you this, Dustin. I didn't read a thing that you had written other than, "Hey, are you interested?" And I went, "It's you." I jumped in.
The highest compliment if you learn something else from me and trust me enough to be like, I don't know what he's teaching me, but I'm in. That's a great compliment. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it was worth it. It was so worth it. So having said that, what I discovered when I got in there was a pathway to bring myself and my message out. Yes, it helped me in doing some small things like understanding who my client was, niching down a little bit. And yes, I'm still further developing that and understanding that. But wow, was that ever instrumental in moving me forward in a very critical time in my life and in my business. So maybe tell us a little bit about what you are, in a nutshell, bringing to people with the success coaching, the simple success coaching and the partnership marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm big on context because it's kind of like why, I can tell people what the outcomes are and we will, but kind of like why does it matter, right? Where did it come from? Why does it matter? And what you touched on there, I'm very big into 90-day planning. I'm very big into 90-day action plans. Again, maybe it's my engineering brain, but I like to have very clear focused outcomes that we're seeking when we work together. And so, because of that, that's how a lot of my one-on-one coaching has always been structured, right? So a very typical business coaching relationship for me would be someone saying, I feel stuck. I'm not sure what to do at the next step. We hop on a strategy call, and together I listen to what's going on. I tell them my thoughts and based on my experience, and then together we agree on a 90-day plan for them. Like, here's what I think you should be doing this month, next month, and a month after, so you can get these outcomes that you really care about. And so in my one-on-one coaching, basically I do that for free. And then the next logical question is, would you like me to help you implement the 90-day plan and walk alongside with you, hold you accountable, take care of any technical stuff that comes up, answer your questions, etc. And that answer, of course, is almost always yes. But that's where all this came from. And so I was working with a lot of one-on-one clients. I'd say about my 20th one-on-one client. And what I started to find with these two things that I do every day is, as I was marketing FireCreek Snacks in a certain way, what we're now calling partnership marketing, that started to become what all the 90-day plans look like for everybody else, right? I was like, because I was seeing how well it worked. It was the people that I tend to attract are kind of relationship-based people. They're intuitive people. They're people that are kind of heart-centered. They're mission-driven. And so this whole idea of marketing that way versus the more traditional direct marketing, digital marketing, Facebook ads, that sort of thing. Now, you can do that also, but this partnership marketing tend to work really well for my clients. And so, so Sandra was part of a group that was the first sizable group that we had done this process together. So we took 6 weeks and we went from start to finish and basically help people implement a partnership marketing system. And so what that is, the short answer here after all that background is it's basically a systematic way to get yourself out in front of your ideal audience without spending money, typically, and in a way that provides a deeper relationship. So a very common and what the kind of the case study we worked through together in our group with Sandra was podcasting. So being a guest on a podcast is a very simple example of partnerships. There's way more types of partnerships, and we can talk about that. But if you think about that, the whole idea is it's a win-win-win. So for me as a business owner or a coach or whatever, it's very beneficial for me to go out and tell my story, teach my thing, share my heart with having some people listening who could be clients or customers of FireCreek, or whatever. But so that's the win for me. I get exposure basically, right? It's like I call it PR with a purpose. It's kind of, and being on a television show would be another perfect example of this. But sticking with the podcast example, that's the win for me. The win for the host is they get really high quality content. And then the win for the audience is they learn something, right? Or they have some emotional connection or transformation by hearing the story. And there's often a free opportunity, like a lead magnet, we might call it a downloadable, a free coaching call, whatever. So that's also a benefit to them. So in that simple example, that's the win-win-win. But the basic genesis of the whole thing is like, I have something to offer and I want to get in front of people who might care about it. And partnership marketing is the way to make that connection. And so what I found when I kind of introduced this at that level, and I'm like, well, it's, be a podcast guest. People are like, oh, okay, well, I've done that once, or I've thought about that. And they kind of dismiss it. But I think, and Sandra, I love your input on this because I know you have been, you have your own show and you've been on shows. I guess I'll ask you, what was different in going through it in a 6-week process versus just kind of doing it occasionally and maybe not feeling like you were getting the results that you'd like?
I love that you've reversed the tables here because I wanted to have some input in this conversation in this exact manner.
Good.
Honestly, before working with you and the partnership marketing, I was looking at a social media platform and looking for somebody who was putting feelers out. Essentially, they were just putting feelers out. So there wasn't a whole lot of direction, and I wouldn't even go scout out who they were. And it felt like I was hitting and missing. I was hoping that these people would reach back out to me, and I was hoping that I had a same message. In fact, I spent a lot of time, Dustin, going back and trying to find the post that I had gone and clicked on, because I didn't even have a system as you've got that beautiful sheet where I could actually go in it and putting the information in. I was struggling by going and looking for the information of who did I connect with, what did I say? Okay, yeah. What did I say? That's probably the big one. Is I said I don't know how many different things over the last year on different people's posts on social media, and you just went whoosh with me, and this like the guidance on how to keep track of where you're asking, what the message is that you want to deliver, who your audience is, what you want the host to ask you or talk about, and the give me afterwards was invaluable, absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's anyone that's ever been in sales has heard the adage, sell people what they want and give them what they need. It's like you go to a holistic doctor because your neck hurts. I've actually been going through this with like a holistic chiropractor type guy. And I went there because I had a little bit of neck pain, right? And then he gave me a diagnosis and gave me a much more robust plan than I ever would have thought for myself. And I'm feeling so much better. And but I went there because I had what felt like an urgent pain, but what I actually needed was something much more comprehensive that's going to allow me to have a healthy spine and, good core strength and all that for the rest of my life. So in the same sense, partnership marketing on the surface, it's like, I want to get some more coaching clients, so I'll go get on some podcasts. And, that is a simple version of it. Yeah. But when you go through a process with someone who's got a lot of experience with it, and when you're doing it in a group setting also, you get so much more out of it, and I've had that experience personally, and I've obviously seen that with the people I work with. You mentioned a few things there that are interesting, like that help being organized, right? Like helping you really clarify who your ideal client is. These are not even things I would put as bullet points of the benefits of the program, but like I've talked to every person who was in our group. Everyone says things like that, but no one, I I won't put words in your mouth, but what other people have told me is they didn't know they needed that. They didn't know that that was a problem until they saw the alternative. And then they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. Like I didn't know it could work this way. So yeah. And that's that. And Sandra, if it's helpful at any point, I can also kind of go through the 4 steps to kind of people kind of understand the beginning to the end of the process that we work through. Because you can do this stuff on your own too. I mean, obviously I think there's a benefit of having a guide and a coach and a group in some cases. But I'm very open and transparent about the what, like I tell people exactly what to do. And if you can do it on your own, that's awesome. So.
No, I definitely want you to do this because and just to give you a realization, or I told you this in my testimonial for you, it's that realizing that the things that I was doing, I was playing small. And because of that, I wasn't seeing my potential, and nor was anybody else. And by going through this beautiful program with you, the potential now, the people that I'm reaching out to are influencers in their own right. And I'm becoming an influencer as well, instead of playing small and Mickey Mousing around. And I don't mind. It doesn't matter to me on one hand, but on the other hand, I have a vision. I have a vision of where I want to go. And like FireCreek Snacks, huge potential that you didn't even know. And then bam, 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 look at what happened, right? So yes, please do walk us through the steps if you don't mind. That'd be wonderful.
Absolutely. So it's 4 steps. So if people really want to like write them down, but the first one is purpose. And this is really this is where a lot of these intangibles come in. So, right, it's really just a simple question of what will I get as a business owner, coach, et cetera, out of being in a partnership? Like, what's the purpose of me doing this? Why would I spend time implementing a system and everything? So for some people, that's a real simple answer. They already know, like they have other forms of marketing. They've done a lot of this. Like they could tell you in an elevator pitch, I do this. This is who I serve. This is the transformation I provide. This is my lead magnet. This is my call to action. For some people, they don't have any of that, So in one-on-one coaching, this is the area that is the most flexible, I guess, right? For some people, it's 30 minutes. For some people, it's 30 days. But being able to answer that question clearly unlocks the remaining steps, because step 2 is plan. And so that's essentially the research, right? So once I know my purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish, then I can figure out who I want to talk to. So that's like if I know my target audience, then I can then answer the question, who has that target audience, right? So so that's the planning part. And you mentioned in there prioritization, a spreadsheet. So one of our tools is when you do this research, you start to find lots and lots and lots of potential opportunities in different buckets of where people show up. And it can become overwhelming. So we've got a really simple spreadsheet, a really simple tool that allows you to basically, as you populate some information about each of these opportunities, it'll help you prioritize it. So then you always know, this is my next thing that I want to try to approach. And when you want to do that, that's step 3, which is pitch. And that's simply getting the person who has access to this audience. I wouldn't say owns the audience, but you know what I mean. The people, the podcast host, as an example, how do you get their attention? How do you get them to not only open your email, read it, care about it, and respond to it with a yes? And we can talk more about that. This to me, this is the most special sauce in this whole thing. It's the most art and science, because it's there's a template. We call it the perfect pitch email template, but it's not cookie cutter in the sense that each one of these emails is customized, because that's what makes it so effective. And then step 4 is perform. And so that's preparing for a really good partnership. And again, using a podcast, example, we talk about how to quickly prepare to do a really good job on a show, how to make the host look good, how to really deeply connect emotionally with their audience through some strategies that we talk about, like mini stories and some things to establish credibility with the audience, and how to make a really good call to action. It's kind of the key to the whole thing. Tell people what the next step is. They're excited. They've heard your story. They've connected through this partnership, and they want to know what to do next. So, and then the follow up. And you mentioned that too, also, Sandra. Like, how do you not just have a one-off relationship or a one-off appearance on a podcast, but how do you really connect with that host? How do you make you referable, right? So when someone thinks, I need someone who has this topic, you're gonna be the first one that they spit out, because you maybe left them an iTunes review, you gave them a thank you note, you referred other guests to them that are high quality. We talk about these things to really make it a deeper relationship. So those are the 4 steps. And then, as Sandra knows, there's kind of this bonus section of this whole thing that really takes all this to like exponential. You know, it kind of makes it a repeatable system and makes it 10x, I guess you could say, kind of the results of what we call the network effect. And so, yeah, I'm happy to talk about any of that, but that's the 4 basic steps: purpose, plan, pitch, and perform.
I love that. And the way you lead us through is so powerful, but also to, having that group setting where we actually were able to effectively put our purpose, our plan, our pitch, etc. out there was really invaluable, because getting the feedback and being able to tweak it in, because we only know what we know from our own point of view.
Right.
But when we get that point of view from the people who are participating in this with us, it was really, really quite valuable.
Yeah,
And I know
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, and I've done this, like I said, many times one-on-one, and it's always been really good. And some people need one-on-one because, especially that first step, that purpose, they may not be very clear on that, and you kind of can feel like you're getting left behind in a group if everyone else is moving on and you feel like you're at step 1. But there's absolutely no replacing the dynamic of a high quality group. And we had a really great group, very engaged. You know, I think everyone except I think one person had like a direct conflict, but every person was there on all 6, online meetings that we had, which is pretty rare to get everyone to stay that engaged that far through. And yeah, and just like you said, we had we had these live meetings, and you had video training in between, and we had a Slack channel, which I was actually new to Slack. I mean, I'd used it, but I had never led anything through Slack. And that was just a plethora of feedback and information and connections and relationship building. So yeah, it was a really fun experience.
You know what I'd love to hear from you, Dustin, is probably one of my favorite stories, is where you had kind of planted an idea, and then it just really blossomed into, a years down the road kind of thing, and then all of a sudden it went poof. So you know better than I the word that you want to use in that. So
yeah, actually, I mean, I've many of those stories, but I think the one you're referring to is related to FireCreek
yes.
Snacks, right? Yeah, and this one's very fresh. It's continuing to get better. This is pretty cool. But yeah, basically, right around the time of the initial COVID shutdowns. So this is like everyone's freaking out and they're working from home, and for the first time in some cases. I just saw this guy on LinkedIn, and I noticed he was posting about working from home and how it was affecting his job greatly, because his job it's called Snack Nation, right? And they've rebranded now to Karoo. But a lot of people might be familiar with Snack Nation, especially if they've ever worked in a larger corporation. Their whole business model is they get better for you snacks, and their business model was they send them to the break room, right? And so like you're fueling your office staff with great healthy snacks. Well, of course, with COVID, that they had to abruptly pivot, so it became a send small boxes to all your individual employees in their homes. And he was just making a remark about it, and I commented, and we ended up connecting on LinkedIn. And I kind of thought that was the end of it, but as I really thought about it, I said, you know what, this is interesting. So I ended up sending him an email, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I posted it in the group. This is over almost 2.5 years ago. It was a perfect pitch email, right? And I had done just a little research, and I made a connection. I'll just leave it at that. And I said, hey, we're really small. We were much smaller at that time, and in the scheme of who they work with, we were very small. They mostly work with large corporations. And I said, but I'd love to send you some snacks. I know you're working from home. I think you'll like them. And I knew this was like his thing. He said, sure. So I sent him some snacks to his house. I think he's in San Francisco. I thought that was the end of it. And then like 2 weeks later, I get an email, and he says, oh my gosh, your teriyaki stick is like the best snack stick I've ever had. And it's pretty high praise because this guy's a professional snack buyer, right? That's what his job is. And I said, great. And he asked if we could have a phone call. He just wanted to learn more about the brand. He was, he's kind of background in consumer packaged goods, which was our category. So in the phone call, I just made a simple ask, and I said, yeah, I know we're small, but it'd be really cool if on some limited basis you could put our snacks in some of your boxes, right? So for them, small was like 8,000 boxes. So he said, okay, he would do it. We had to donate the goods. So we're basically giving away 8,000 snack sticks, but I knew it was at the very least, it was going to give us an as seen on opportunity, right? Like now we're connected to Snack Nation, which is a pretty big deal. That went well. The reviews were good. So then I leveraged that, and I asked him to introduce me to their vice president, who's also their podcast host. And so that was probably the first podcast I was ever on. And come to think of it, so then in later in 2020, I was on their podcast. It's called Brand Builder. It's pretty decent sized podcast. And so through that came a lot of great relationships. A lot of other brands listened to that. And again, I thought that was the end of it. So this, it's basically into 2020. I see on LinkedIn, his guy's name was George. George left and he went to a different startup, and well, that was cool. Yeah, I got on the podcast, made some other great relationships with other brands, and we had the as seen on opportunity, and we made some sales because people got them and then reached back out and bought. Well, fast forward to January 2022, just a few months ago, I get an email from someone at now Karoo. I didn't realize they'd even changed names. And I'm like, what's Karoo? And it says Karoo, formerly Snack Nation. I'm like, oh, wait, I remember those guys. But it was a woman. Her name's Sharon. And she says, hi, I'm Sharon. I'm the new snack buyer for Karoo. And I want to change how we do things. Instead of doing a bunch of small allocations, I want to kind of roadmap the whole year. So if you guys have the capacity, I'd like to work out a deal with you starting in the second quarter through the end of this year. Yeah, to buy some snack sticks. And we had a few phone calls, and it was not just some snack sticks. It's so far for the 3 quarters of the year, 600,000 snack sticks. So massive impact on our business, obviously, huge opportunity. It's not only the revenue that comes from that, and we're doing this, profitably. We're not donating anything, they're paying us for them. So that's really good. But, for us, the consumer discovery is huge, because now we have 600,000 people, or, some portion of that, if there may be some repeat receivers in there, but 6 figures amount of people are going to have our snacks for the first time, and then maybe probably pursue us and become customers. But yeah, that's really it. I planted a seed of, I'll try to connect with this guy on LinkedIn. Fast forward 2.5 years, that seed blossoms into a 600,000 stick, purchase order for our company. So, and that's not a unique story. I mean, it's pretty unique in the size of the outcome, but yeah, I've had some really crazy experiences that I would have never dreamed of just by planting these seeds and building these relationships through partnerships, like all kinds of stuff, like stuff that's not even related to direct sales. And so that's what I really try to impart on the group is this. It's a part of having an abundant mindset, that you lead with value, you go do good things, you try to make great relationships. And you know what? Something good's probably going to come of that. And you can never foresee what it's going to be. So that's a good story. I'm glad you prompted me to ask to share that.
Well, I find it was extremely powerful because it gave the potential.
Yeah.
And really, that's what the potential is. When I was dabbling, and that's what I want to call it, when I was dabbling in podcasts before, I really, I knew I had a message to get out, but I really wasn't even sure what that message was. And like I said, in just moments ago, it changed from podcast to podcast, even though the underlying message was always the same. It just really felt like it was so out there, and I wanted to keep telling my stories, like my little bits and pieces of stories, because as you said, that's how people relate, is to the stories. But what you teach us in the partnership marketing is how to use those stories, and also the when, because it's not just in the podcasts or whatever the medium is that you're using, but it's also in even the emails that you're sending out.
Yeah,
it's that interaction there, and I thought that was very powerful. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this?
I think it's most people can relate to podcasts, and there's nothing wrong if all you use this for is podcasts. I think, then that's great. And we use that as the process we work through in our group. And I felt like when we kind of got to the bonus week and we started talking about all the other ways you can apply this, people are like, oh my gosh, like I was only thinking of podcasts. So, maybe you're not someone who wants to be on a podcast. Think of other partnerships. So think about what you do. A really simple exercise here. Whoever's listening, especially if you're in business, or, it's not just a business application. If you have some message you want to get out for some reason, usually it's going to be business. Who do you want to talk to? Who would you love to have hear your message? And then think about, where are they at? And then how can you connect with them in a way that really lights you up, right? So like when I grew Engaged Marriage, it was really before the age of podcasting was very popular. And I really like to write. I don't write nearly as much as I used to, but it was a written blog, right? So I was doing partnership marketing back then. I would have never known what to call it. And a really simple form then would have been guest posting, right? Like I have a message that I think would resonate with your audience. Can I write a blog that's unique to your audience? And that worked really well for Growing Engaged Marriage. One of the very first things I ever did, and I know this came up in one of our last group calls, is a collaborative ebook. So back in the day, like ebooks were something pretty new. And I said, you know what? I was new. This was like I was 2 months into having a website. I said, what could I do? So I started just finding people that I thought might be able to contribute. And I said, hey, I'll do all the work. I'll put this thing together. But let's do an ebook together where we'll all write like 2 pages, right? Like our best relationship tip or whatever. It was called Love Every Day. And this was like everyday ways to show your significant other that you appreciate them is really the gist of it. And I got some really great people, like 20 people contributed to this thing because I didn't ask for much. I said, I'll do all the work and then we'll all benefit from it because you can use it like to serve your audience or to use as a lead magnet for an email list, or you could sell it for, whatever, but we're all going to have access to it. And of course, what happened out of that was I got to know 19 other people in a relationship space. And some of them are my best friends still. And like one of the guys' name's Tony DeLorenzo. We talk every other day. I've been out and visited his family. He knows mine. They have the most popular marriage podcast on iTunes now. We kind of started this whole game together because I reached out because I had this ebook idea. So there's ebooks, and then like FireCreek, I talked about if you have a physical product, there's things like subscription boxes that you can partner and be a part of those. Any form of interview, local press, TV, things like joint venture webinars, like you go teach someone's audience a topic on a webinar, and then maybe you have a product to sell and you can have an affiliate relationship where it's monetary. Even if you have a local business, like I'm just going through examples off the top of my head, but like if you had a local business, how could, you may think, well, this is only an online thing, but it's not. Like it's a mindset. It's like, how can I find a win-win-win setup where it's an easy ask, it's easy yes, because all I'm doing is providing value, and it's only natural for me to make an ask if people want to make the next step. So an example would be like, say you do a local, maybe you do marketing for accounting firms. It's like the most boring thing ever. And so, or not even marketing firms. Let's say you do personal finance and you mostly work with accountants. So how would this work? Well, how could you get in front of accountants? So maybe you should go to an accounting firm and you can say, hey, I teach personal finance to accountants. When people are out of debt and they're doing well with their money, they're a lot more comfortable at work. They're a lot less stressed. I would like to come do a lunch and learn. I will teach them the basics of, budgeting and in the way that will really it'll really click with them because they're accountants. And then, so like, I'm providing a win to this business owner who says, hey, employees, I really love you guys and care about you. I've got an expert that's going to come in and no cost to you. He's going to teach you guys about personal finance. And then, so that's the way he looks good. And he's providing a service to his employees. The employees learn and they, this is something they benefit from directly. And then I can then at the end of that say, if anyone wants to work with me, I've just taught you the basics of this, but this is what I do for a living. Come see me after the presentation, right? So it's just another, like, that's partnership marketing. And so it's kind of broad. And so it can kind of be like overwhelming to come up with a personal example for each person. And that's where coaching can help a lot of times. Is like, well, I don't really know how to use this in my business. There's always an application in every business. I'm convinced of it after doing this for a while.
Well, and I've witnessed part of this, especially over this last 2 years, kind of. And I'm in awe. First of all, you're the first man on my podcast platform that I'm developing. And nice. I love what you're bringing in. And I love too that you can walk in many different realities, meaning that you can walk in almost anybody's field and help them to discover how to present themselves. And that doesn't matter if you're spiritual or if you're anything else, however you want to label yourself, if you wear a label. Dustin is the person to reach out to. So with that in mind, how do they find you?
I don't have a call to action. No, I'm joking. No, really, really simple. I think you've put it up a few times, but simplesuccesscoaching.com. If you go there, there's a contact form. You can send me an email. It's Dustin, Dustin, @simplesuccesscoaching.com. it's I like to have conversations with people. It could be as simple as this, a few emails back and forth. We could hop on a Zoom call. But if anyone's feeling stuck, or they have some ambition they have for their business, and they're really not sure what the next step should be, or how to get them, how to make them happen, that's what I love to do. If you go to that website, you're going to see my big mug, and it's going to say like "Get Unstuck." That's my thing. I love giving people clarity. I love giving people confidence. And so I do offer free consultation calls where we get on a call and we'll talk for half an hour, and I'll help you any way I can on the call. And then if it makes sense for both sides, I'll say, do you want help with coaching? And then like the workshop that Sandra did, I do those on a rolling basis. So at any given time, they may be a week out or a month out or whatever. But there's usually opportunities to do some kind of group work if that's your thing. So yeah, so simplesuccesscoaching.com. We can have a chat. And as Sandra said, it could be a blessing and a curse sometimes. I don't have like a niche, right? Like, so I've personally been involved in many different types of businesses, from like engineering consulting to marketing consulting to coaching to selling snack sticks to doing digital courses. And I've had clients in all of those, every kind of local business you can imagine. That I think is valuable in the sense that it gives me a lot of different examples and perspectives, and I can relate to a lot of different people's situations. But that doesn't make me a great marketer of my own coaching, right? Because if I'm doing a really good job marketing my own coaching, I would have a really set niche and I would only talk to certain types of people. But that's not what lights me up. What lights me up is talking to lots of different types of people. And in our group, we had Sandra, we had some other more spiritually inclined people that would call themselves coaches. We had like marketing agency leads. We had e-commerce, like a supplement
Virtual
company.
assistant.
Yeah, we had a virtual assistant. And then that's another point, to kind of to conclude the partnership marketing idea is I'm a big fan of, if you're a doer, if you're a solopreneur, if you have a small team, like you should learn this yourself and implement it at first yourself, just so you understand it deeply and you can work through that purpose statement. But once you do that, what makes something a great marketing system is when it's repeatable and you don't have to do all the work, right? Like that's what makes it an asset to a business. So what my group learned, and what I always encourage everyone to do, and what I do for myself, is yes, go through this, understand it, make some of these initial pitches so you get a rhythm and a feel for it. But then ideally you go hire a virtual assistant who can do 80% of the work for you, right? Because then you go through the same training, just watching the videos, understand the process. And then that step 2 and 3, that plan and that pitch, that's like, you do the purpose kind of once, you could reset that from time to time if you want. And then to perform, you have to do, you need to show up. But if you like this approach, you're going to like that part. It's the 2 and 3 that can become a grind. And that's what's great. There's other people who love doing the research and writing the draft emails using those templates that we provide. And so, yeah, I didn't want to fail to mention that if someone's like, well, this sounds like a lot of work. Well, it is work, and it takes work to get results, but you don't have to do all that work. Like it's very much an outsourceable activity once you get the system down.
Well, and you know what? I'm going to actually negate what you said about it being work, because in reality, I spent I don't know how many years dabbling.
Yeah.
That was a lot of work.
Yeah, you're right.
Your system, the tools that you provide and give to us during the course are invaluable. And now my time has been cut down to like 10% of what I was slaving away at before. I now have a much better system. And that's the thing, is you can apply this to so many parts of your life as well, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. And you've seen results. I mean, that's what's so great, Sandra, that you did the work. You showed up, you were focused for 6 weeks. And even before we were done, you were getting yeses to people that you really admired. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's why I do this. That's what lights me up, is to see the impact it has on people's confidence and their revenue. But, really it's about that personal, clarity and confidence. Like you see it, someone's eyes light up and then they're excited and then they try stuff and it works maybe for the first time ever in a sustainable way. Yeah. That's the fun in doing all this stuff. So
exactly. So even if it's just a simple conversation, reach out to Dustin at simplesuccesscoaching.com. Maybe say your email again, because I haven't got that typed in.
No, it's fine. It's Dustin, Dustin, at simplesuccesscoaching.com.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yep.
I honestly think that anybody who is in wanting to be seen, wanting to step into the next step of their business entrepreneurship, or anything. Like even if you're writing a book and you want to start to pitch it to publishers, I can see how this is going to work. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
We have like one more minute. I have that prompted me another story that it's an application of this. Is that okay?
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with business, which I think is what's cool about it. So I had a one-on-one coaching client. His name is Daniel last summer, and he was like, he's into real estate, and he was basically building a YouTube following. And so we were using this for that. He learned the system one-on-one, and then he was really excited about it. And so one day he said, "Hey, can we do a call and have on my last call, and can my wife join us?" I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Is this like getting into an engaged marriage issue or what's going on?" And no, is his wife worked in a corporate at Walmart. She worked a really good job at Walmart doing a buyer in corporate. She was thinking she wanted to leave, and she knew that her dream was to basically be like an HGTV designer, right? Like very different world. But she had this favorite show, and she just had this clarity about that. She's like, I want to work on that show, but I don't. And Daniel's told me about this 4-step process, and he thinks it'll apply. So we worked through it, and she knew her purpose. She knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew what she could offer them, which was like a free internship. Like she'll work for free. She just wants to work for you. And she's able to do that because of the success they're having with his real estate business. So this all kind of ties together. So then the real trick became the pitch. Like, how do I approach, like all she knew was the stars of the show. Right? And I was like, and she even knew where they lived. And I was like, well, let's not put a letter in their mailbox. That'd be a little creepy. So we worked the system though. We figured out some connections and some mutual connections, and she ended up finding someone that she could approach that didn't seem creepy and give this idea. And then that got passed to the right people. And then she, got an opportunity. She got like a 2-week unpaid contract or whatever, basically to make sure she wasn't a lunatic probably. So they let her on set though. And she did fabulous. And that was last summer. She's now works full time on this show. She's like, and her name's in the credits on this HGTV design show. It's on HGTV. I don't know if I mentioned that part. So again, it's not, she wasn't doing this as like a marketing system, but it was the same idea. Like some of the things that Sandra's learned about relational anchors, like how do you approach an influencer that you respect in a way that gets their attention and gets them to want to say yes to you. So she used that. So she left her corporate job like almost immediately and is now a designer on an HGTV show and it's like her dreams. So I love that. It's a fun example of kind of, it's not about the system in that case, but it is about the mindset. And I don't think without Daniel being exposed to the training and the mindset that he or her would have ever seen the path to actually make that a reality. Like he's like, no, I think we can really do this. Like let's try it. They saw the abundance.
I love the potential.
Yeah.
Love the potential. That's my my word for the year is possibilities. And that's what this opens up is the possibilities.
Yep.
So again, if you have any inclination to step out in any way, have a conversation with Dustin. You'll find on this and his email, which I believe is Dustin, DUSTIN at simplesuccesscoaching.com, correct?
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. That if you have a conversation with this gentleman, it's going to change how you do things. It's going to fast forward you in a very powerful way. And the people that you admire, you suddenly feel like you're way more on par with, and you can reach out to them in a much more comfortable manner rather than feeling like you're at totally different levels. Yep. And that's the magic of it. You become the influencer. Thanks so much, Dustin.
Thank you for all your kind words. Thank you for being such a great student and implementer, and your great testimonial as a result of that. And I look forward to continuing to see your growth and all the momentum you're building by implementing what you learned.
Thank you. And I'm hoping people are steered your way with this video too. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks.